Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of NC-17. And today we actually have a very special guest with us. We have author, actor, writer, producer, and veteran. We got Mindy Dougherty. How you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm pretty good, pretty good. First and foremost, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we kind of get into everything you got going on right now, kind of just take us back a little bit when you were younger. What were some of the what were some of the inspirations and what really drove you to want to do the things you do and be in movies and write books and serve our country?
So I'll be very honest. The filming stuff actually came in my adulthood. My mom loved to do like plays and theater and stuff like that, and I ran the opposite way. I wanted to, get in the mud, get dirty. She put me in pageants, put me in dresses. The minute I could, I took them off. It was like, give me my sweatpants, let me be in my pajamas. Um, but I'd watch different television shows throughout. Of course, I was one of those kids that like my mom was working two jobs and she was single. So going through my childhood, it was a really rough childhood, and I write about that in my autobiography. And when I joined the military, it was because I had once Miss San Francisco Bay Teen USA when I was 18. And my mom said, because I had asked her, I was like, if I win this contest, can I just stop? Can we just stop all the modeling stuff? Can we just stop all this mess? Oh, yeah, yeah, no problem. So I win, all excited, thinking we're done. She's like, well, there's just one more pageant. I'm like, no, I don't want it. She goes, but this is another modeling gig that you get. I was like, I don't want to do any more of this anymore. I don't want to put makeup on. I don't want to put a dress on. I don't want none of this. And then so when I was 17, prior to that pageant, I'd gone to the recruiter's office and listened to what they had to tell me for the U.S. Army, took my ASVAB test, and then I said, okay, I want to get in. And so I signed my stuff. However, I was 17 at the time, and you have to be 18 at the time that you sign your paperwork. So my mom gets a little knock, knock, knock on her door. My recruiter comes in and she's like, come on in. And she's bawling her eyes out. What did you do? I said, I signed the paperwork. And she knew at that moment that if she didn't sign it, I was going to go regardless. Like once I have my head stuck on something, it doesn't go away. It's more or less like I'm going to keep doing this until you let me, or I'm going to keep bugging you until you sign this paperwork. Or at 18, I'm just going to leave. And so she was doing the pageants and all that other stuff because she wanted to raise money for college. She was really big on Mindy, you have to get your education because she didn't. She graduated high school, and back then, like taking care of kids, and it was a whole different generation than we have now. So I mean, I completely understand that. And when I get older, I'm sure it's going to be a whole different generation of kids. When I get there, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I never had any of this. So and just go with the flow really right now. But I did go to the military. I was a combat field medic. I was served 4 years, was in Bosnia, Croatia, and Hungary, served in Germany, and then Colorado Springs. While I was in Bosnia, unfortunately, I caught a parasite and that messed up my intestines. And so I ended up having pancreatitis and appendicitis to make a short story, a long story short. And so I have had four organs taken out: my gallbladder, my appendix, duodenum, my appendix, my gallbladder, my duodenum, and my pancreas. So it left me being diabetic forever. And so fast forward, I went to nursing school in 2004 in Denver, Colorado. And then or excuse me, in New Jersey, I started 1 year because I wanted to meet some family of mine. So after the military, I went to New Jersey, volunteered for the fire department in Voorhees Fire Department. Went to school in Camden, which is a really rough city. We were getting bussed in by like sheriffs to the level one trauma center, Cooper Trauma, and I was like, "Hey, how you doing, Jersey folks?" going to Philly. I lived right by the Walt Whitman Bridge, but that just the school wasn't for me. I wanted to run away from religion. My mom was, every Sunday we were at church, so it was just I was tired of it. And so when I went to nursing school, I didn't like that school. So I went to Colorado, and I basically had just gotten my pancreas taken out, and I moved. And so once I got to Denver, I started the rest of my associate's degree at Community College of Denver. And then I wanted my bachelor's degree because they said if you want to work at any of these hospitals, especially the level one trauma center, you can't work here unless you have your bachelor's degree. And I was like, oh my God, really? Like, I'm already a nurse. Like, really, do I have to get this? So then I went back to school and got my bachelor's degree in nursing at University of Colorado at Denver. Then I went to work at the Level One Trauma Center in Denver, and that taught me a lot. And so, fast forward a little bit further, because I did trauma nursing, interventional radiology. I've done pre-op, PACU, pain clinic, and all these other things that incorporated. And I've been a medical researcher at this point for 31 years. So in 2014, I met somebody in Westminster that I had thought that I wanted to marry, and he was moving to Texas, and he had a child, and I couldn't have kids. So I was like, all right, well, let's just try this hat on. And my boss and my coworkers were like, no, don't try that hat on. Don't get married. You don't want to get married. You really, you don't want to get, you don't want to get married. And I was like, well, I'll just try it. I can always come back. And my boss was like, all right, if you want to. Then after that, I was like, after I put in my notice, I was like, oh God, did I do the wrong thing? And I was like, you know what? You only live once. And if I don't take this chance right now, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. Or I'm always going to wonder, like, should I have been with him? Or, whatever. And I didn't want to have those questions. Like, I don't like living with regret. So, and I am, especially at that point in time, I was just kind of like balls to the wall, like, let's just go. Packed up everything, went to Texas, and that didn't last very long. I bought a house, and a couple months later, I was like, oh my God, I really did make a mistake. And so I tried to do travel nursing while I was there. And I just bought my house, it was maybe a month or two in, and I was in the backyard pruning trees. And I'd gotten too tired. I came down a ladder and I missed that very last step. So when I missed the last step, I broke both ankles and my leg tibia fibia. So I had all those fractures, and my neighbor, found me and heard me screaming, called the ambulance, went to the doctor, and they were like, well, you have to give us 13 grand. I'm not 13 grand. I don't got 13 grand. What do you mean 13 grand? She's like convinced me to go to the VA hospital. I'm like, all right, well, I'm a veteran, so I'll go to the VA hospital. Not knowing that I would have to live with this choice that I had for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, I was tortured for 4 straight months, and I went from 137 to 107. I had ended up getting multiple bulging and herniated discs in my neck and my back. Couldn't speak because they shoved tubes down my throat to make me shut up. They blocked my bladder instead of my foot, meaning they did surgery open without any anesthesia on my foot. And so then on the second one, because they did something wrong, there was a screw that went up and migrated up my leg, and there was metallic shavings all over my leg on the radiology report. And so on that second one where they were trying to fix it, basically stuff had happened in the OR to where I had basically vaginal scrapings for 3 straight days. So I got assaulted. And so after that happened, my left leg, I had to raise it above my head or it would turn into like an elephant's foot and it would be like red and purple. And I had something called chronic regional pain syndrome that they did not want to come to terms with. And so they basically told me I was lying, I was drug seeking, all this other stuff. And if you know me or know anything about me, I don't really like medications. I was a top athlete. At the time that I broke my leg, I was training for a 100-mile ride with the American Diabetes Association on a bicycle. So just to give you some context of like, I wasn't just a like la la la, on my little bike, tricycle, like having fun. No, I was training for a ride. But when I broke my leg, the things that they had done to me and had me endure were a nightmare for 4 straight months. So I called a friend of mine in Colorado and I was like, there's a CNA that just called me and told me I'm being set up and they're coming to get me. She goes, what do you mean they're coming to get you? I said, I don't know what that means. She said, you have to get out of here. And she's like, well, we don't have the money, this, that, that. I said, I'll pay you. What is your daily rate? And I was like, fine, I'll pay you 7 grand if you come here right now. So her boyfriend, now husband, got in the truck because they were truck drivers anyways. So and drove 16 hours straight to get to me. And then when they got to me, they saw my condition and they were like, "Oh God, we didn't have any idea. Like we just thought that you were honestly, Mindy, we thought you were nuts." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I get that. Like I would think I was nuts if I heard my story too. Trust me." But I had friends at that time taking pictures and stuff, and I'm glad that they did because I wouldn't have known or comprehended all the stuff that had happened to me at that time. And I'm glad that I have that too. Also, I'd given it to a hostage negotiator recently, and I was like, hey, and he's a police officer. He's done law enforcement for a while, and now he's an EMT. And so I asked him, I said, hey, I want you to like look at these, and I want you to tell me what your thoughts are. And he like wrote me back, holy shit. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to let you know, like there was no exaggeration, there was no like embellishing, like this is all it. And so that's what propelled me to write my book. I was putting out multiple posts to anybody because I was desperate at that time to get out, number one, of there, Texas. And number two, I went to a civilian hospital. The problem with that is if you go to a civilian hospital and then you try to go to the VA and the VA takes care of you, you can't go back to a civilian hospital because they don't want to take the care of you because if they take care of you, they're taking on everything that the VA messed up on and they knew they didn't want to do that. So they sent me back to the VA, which was terrible. And the VA wouldn't release my medical records to the civilian hospital because they knew that they'd done something wrong. They knew they did a lot of things wrong. And if that came public, that they'd be screwed. They only released my records after the time stature was passed that I could do anything with a lawyer. And so that's why there was just I was angry. I was beyond angry before that anyways, but they just gave me more fuel to my fire. And so I was posting and posting and all of a sudden I had some guy reach out to me and he is an extra on the Vikings Valhalla, Game of Thrones, How to Train Your Dragon, and this newest one that's coming out called Blood Axe, and it would be on Prime Video. And he's been a friend of mine since the beginning of this whole mess. And what inspired me to write this book as well is watching the Vikings and having a whole different point of view because I'd given up religion. I gave up a lot of things once this happened to me. And so once that happened, I kept posting and kept putting videos out. And I had a veteran reach out to me and he's like, hey, you want to share your story? I'm like, of course I do. He's like, do you want to go on Veterans Take Charge Radio? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. I want to get my story out to anybody that'll listen right now. And that was prior to my book being made. And he's like, I have a friend of mine that's actually a publisher. And I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? So then my now friend and publisher reached out to me and we spoke for a while. At the time, I did sound nuts. I was stuttering. I couldn't put words together, couldn't figure things out. The reason I am as well as I am now is I had stem cells at BioAccelerator in Colombia. Otherwise, I wouldn't be like this because I was so couchbound 7 years later. It took 3 years to go from isolation to even come out and start to get therapy and even try to navigate life again because I was just so scared and things were just happening at such a raw pace that I just didn't know what to do. And then it took about 7 years because I was bedbound for 3 years and 8 months, but it took 7 years total to even try to like get up and walk to the point where I was still falling on my face. And a friend of mine met me and she's like, I think what would help you is doing improv. And I'm like, well, what's improv? She's like, it's acting. And I was like, acting like what? She goes, no, it's an acting class. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what does that have to do? And I don't know if anybody's gonna really take me because I can't be touched. At the time, I was burning, so if people would touch me, I would burn. Later, if they put hands on me, I would have like handprints later. It was just really gnarly. This disease is really, really nasty. That's why they call it the suicide disease, because most people want to kill themselves because they're burning so bad. It's almost like when you watch those movies and they throw tar on them and then they throw feathers and gasoline and they light it up. That's exactly how I felt every day. And so I went to these classes and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And it was getting my mind out of things. And she's like, you should write a book. I'm like, you're funny. I've heard that multiple times. And so once I found out that my grandma was sick and she was getting dementia and she was starting to have memory loss, I really wanted to get it out. So I reached back out to my friend and I was like, listen, I really need to get this book out. And so he did the e version. And that one was a whole bunch of anger bombs. And so that one's called Mindy's Fight, and that one's an e reader. And basically, it lists dates, times, people, and just all the way through. Needless to say, when I got a couple stem cells, I was like, how about if we revamp this story and maybe not make it so angry and then change some of the people's names so that I don't get in trouble eventually, but I never got in trouble because I already had it out. So, and I was already making gnarly posts. Like I was going after this doctor. I was naming everybody that was doing this stuff. I named the nurses. I named the psych supervisor who set me up. I listed all the residents' names. I listed the staff who shoved my leg into different positions and wouldn't help me and wouldn't give me pain medication and told me I was drug seeking. And then I got seizures because my blood sugars were gnarly because they were telling me that I would be next. And so I wouldn't be able to eat. And so then they bottomed out blood sugars. And so they're like, oh, we can't help you. You got to go home now. Or they would make me eat. And then my blood sugars would go like up to over 200. Like, oh, your surgery's canceled because your blood sugars are too high. So they were just playing gnarly games with me. And when I was trying to get like transportation there, they were like, oh, transportation canceled on you. Or, oh, your appointment was canceled right when I got to the VA. And I was like, what is going on? So I was just a mess. And I was angry and mad. And so throughout all of this stuff, when I went to that improv class, that's when I realized like people were like, oh my God, no matter what you've gone through, you're pretty funny. And I'm like, oh, really? Great. Thanks for telling me I'm so funny, but this stuff hurts. And so then I kind of just like went through the class for about 2 years and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should expand. And I met somebody else that was a veteran and he was online on Facebook and he's like, hey, do you want to come out to this thing that I'm doing? And I'm like, what are you doing? So then I got into the independent film world. That led me to meeting somebody named Michael Mahal and Sonny Mahal, who had passed on. And they're like the independent film gurus, basically. They called themselves an empire. And people have such followed them and tried to mimic what they've done. But they raised over 300 grand at one point, for certain films and stuff like that. So they had a group of people that have always wanted to do their films and got these opportunities that other people wouldn't be able to get. And so I did Bridge of the Doomed first with Michael Pare, Robert Lasardo, and then all the other people that joined in. And then I did Arena Wars, and there were a couple named actors on there. Eric Roberts, Robert Lasardo, I say Michael Madsen, and key people that I would have never been able to work with had I not done these types of independent filming. And so that bridged off to doing a couple other things that I ended up getting, when the way that Michael Mahal set it up is you would pay for your role and then you would get in film and then at least you would get distribution. And then I had already paid for acting classes and wasn't getting anywhere. I paid for photo shoots, wasn't getting anywhere. I mean, I paid over a couple $100 just for that. And I was like, okay, well, if I pay for that and wasn't getting anything, what's the difference between doing that and getting a role and having fun? I told my friend, I was like, well, what's the difference between that and going on a vacation? At least on a vacation, you get pictures, right? Well, this you get nothing. That you get a DVD and you get to have it for the rest of your life and just have fun with it. So after that, I mean, I was doing a couple other independent films where I'd actually get paid a little bit. And it wasn't a lot, but it was something. And now I've gotten some paid roles and some I've just done for free. And then I'm doing voiceovers, so again I'm doing free, and then a lot of them actually I'm getting paid now. And I've been doing some for Europe. I've got two in Canada, one in Europe, and another one coming up in the United States. So that's really cool that it led me to this because had I not like put in the time and put in the money, any which way you do this filming world, you're gonna pay. You're gonna pay for teachers, you're gonna pay for posters, you're gonna pay for advertising. It's all about paying somehow. You're paying the piper somehow, some way. And I never had an agent or anything like that, so I've only stuck to like independent filming. But I recently signed on to do a reality series at some point that we're going to be putting together. And then I'm doing a podcast with co-hosting with a guy named Willie Beard, and we're doing co-hosting with that undercover dumpster. And what that is basically we're helping to bring awareness to sex trafficking and human trafficking so we can decrease that. We're also helping veterans and first responders because there's a lot of people committing suicide still, and there's just a lot of awareness that needs to be brought up. So I like messaged him on in LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, I'd like to collaborate with you, this, that, the other. I said, both of my books are right now in the Alabama Sex Trafficking and Human Alliance and Child Safety Alliance. So I want to keep getting this done. I want to keep putting my children's book in as many police departments and family advocacy groups that I can. So right now it's in 6 different states, 5 different police departments, a few different family advocacy groups, and then that Alabama Sex Trafficking Child Safety Alliance. And so at this point, fast forward until now, and I've done Clown Motel 3 with Joseph Kelly. Not sure when that's going to actually come out, to be honest with you. But then I've done a couple other things, like I said. And then I still have my book. We changed it from A Resilient Warrior to Resilient Warrior because Amazon Prime took my stuff down when I quit. So we had to change the front cover and everything we had to change pretty much. Everything on the inside is the same. And then when I wanted to write my children's book, it was mostly I wanted to write it for kids with disabilities because I have always struggled with reading and comprehension and understanding, and I get things mixed up. And when I'm reading, it just doesn't understand. I just don't understand it. So what I did is I made the lessons almost on every page, and then there would be pictures that followed so that they could actually think about what they were reading and then flip over and then there's the picture to match what they were doing. And then the lesson would be in bold print to say, this is the lesson. Like, do not steal or do not take what's not yours. How to make friends and create a win-win situation. What I do has an effect on you and everybody else around us. And then most importantly, listen to your intuition. And that's what kind of stemmed into the sex trafficking human alliance and decreasing and creating awareness because when kids are abused and they get picked up from the police department, I wanted them to have something to read so that they could get their minds off this and calm their neural system down. So like when I created this book, I was talking to my publisher and he's like, that's a really good idea. So then I just mass created mails. And I think I've emailed over 600 people at this point in time. And all of the schools were like this, you have to go through all these hoops and all these things. But I had some police departments reach back out to me and they found out what I was doing. And then I spoke to a hostage negotiator. And basically what I want to do is, from my understanding, he brought it to Senator where he's at, and the senator brought both my books to the White House. So I don't know what that means or where it's going to go from here, but I'm super excited and very, very honored to have it there. But what I really want to do, the next steps is create my children's book, A Dragon's Voice, into either a cartoon or something where children that can't read or don't understand English can watch it and learn from it. Or they can also set that same thing up in police departments, family advocacy groups, and have them watch it, so that they can have an understanding. And then my autobiography is there for anybody that's ages 12 and up. My kid's book is 12 and under, but the book would be basically for anybody that wants inspiration, anybody who has gone through trauma, PTSD, depression, anxiety, looking for a way out and looking for healing dynamics because I'm also a Watsu practitioner as well as being a nurse. And what that means is I get people in warm water and I do shiatsu massage in the warm water and it helps create a different like brain synapse. So it helps the neural system. I help with PTSD, anxiety, depression, people that have had strokes. I've helped Parkinson's, MS, you name it. And so, though I'm very proud of where I'm at right now, it's taken a long, long, long road to get here. However, I don't think that I would change anything because if I changed anything in that little path, it would change who I am today. And no, do I ever want to get tortured again? No. Do I ever want to go through even a quarter of what I've gone through my lifehood? No, I'm an incest survivor. I was gang raped at 10 with my brother and his friends. So it's been harsh. And my brother's gone to multiple prisons, the worst prisons, like Chino prison for a while, and for basically telling his girl that he was going to murder her. So he's really just not a good guy. And so that's why I write about these things in my book so that people can understand number one, why am I who I am and how did I get here? And also, people that know me, I pretty much try really hard to take a comedic attitude and a jovial attitude, being happy for the most part and helping other people. And I'm often asked, like, how in the world? Why are you helping anybody? Like, I wouldn't even help nobody after what you've gone through. And I was like, I don't know. I just know that for me, it fills my soul up to help people. And so I don't think I was created to not help people. And so I've only known how to help. I've only known this world. I was always brought up to help people. And we fed the homeless with, my mom, not my dad. My dad is a piece of work and does drugs and alcohol. But he was a Vietnam veteran. So I also excuse that because he watched his best friend get blown up. So I don't know how I would deal with Vietnam War if I had to go. But he's nevertheless very angry, and he's from South Jersey as well, and just very like in your face, like this close, and has a no, I don't care attitude for anybody really, and except for himself. And so this book has made it. It's available in over 17 countries. It's now available. Both books are on ebook as well. And I feel like there's more to this. So I really feel like I'm not done yet. And I want to make it to the White House so that I can make congressional changes. And I want to make bigger changes so that our medical system gets revamped. My hopes, because in 2014, I had written the White House and Congress to get what we call community care. And that meant like if we're far away from the VA or if we can't get help at the certain VA, let us go somewhere else to get help. Well, that took like 10 years, but now there's something that's basically in place for a lot of us. But oh my God, is there a lot of red tape? So I want to take off the red tape and, rip off the caution tape and say, at this time we have President Trump. So President Trump to let us go to anywhere we need to go to get our help without having all these linear lines to say that we can't get this help. Like, I'm 100% service connected. I should be able to go wherever I want, just like the regular insurances peoples go. The problem with the VA system that people don't understand is I feel like we're lab rats because a lot of the students get to practice on us. And that is not okay with me anymore at this point in time. Like you have residents taking care of us, and then you have the attending. But how many people have died? How many more people have to die just for us to get help? Number one. And number two, if we look back in the last 10 years, over 700 have died. We need to get this understood with people that we're not where everybody else thinks we are. They're like, "Oh, well, you get medical care and you get all these benefits." What benefits am I getting by please let me know. Let me know what I'm getting so that I can research what I'm supposed to be getting, you know? And people love to get smart with me because they're like, "Oh, well, you have it easy." And I'm like, "Oh, do I?" That's very interesting. Have a good day.
Man, I do want to say for everybody who's going to see this, this is the first time we've had a face-to-face conversation. We've talked about you coming on the show.
Yep.
I didn't like I did a little bit of research, but I don't, because I like to kind of know who's going to be on just so I can, you
Yeah,
know.
I like to fire hose people because you said, don't tell me a lot. Let's do it on the podcast. I'm like, okay, are you sure?
No,
Are you ready to open up little Pandora's box? Because here comes the snake. Just
yeah. But I do want to say that, the what you've been through in your life is very it's something that no one should go through,
Sure.
you know. But what you're giving back, wanting to help people, it seems like from a very young age you've wanted to always help people.
Right. I wanted to be a doctor since I was 5. I was watching brain surgery. My mom was getting disgusted. So she'd always turn off the TV and I kept turning it back on. She'd come back in. She's like, are you watching this again? Turn it off.
I just want to say not only thank you for what you've done for, serving and everything like that. I just want to thank you for being a positive beacon to the people out there who need the kind of person that you are.
Thank you.
You know, and I do want to talk about the movies here in a little bit, but I want to kind of
Sure.
keep it, here for a second. There's so many times in life where people, like you said, you know, you got all these benefits. That's what people are always going to say. But at the end of the day, it's like you really don't know what people have until you actually get to know them.
Correct.
And
And free care is not really care. It's just
oh yeah,
like
uh,
free food. Free food's not always the best.
exactly, exactly. Sometimes the free food is what gets you put in the hospital.
Thank you.
You know?
That was my next point. You like moldy food? Come on down.
Oh yeah, but I do want to say that you are definitely somebody I look up to.
Thank you. That's
You
very
know,
sweet to say.
and at the end of the day, like we all have to understand if we don't look out for each other, who's going to do it?
Right.
So for that, you're a
And I feel
phenomenal.
like also like if I didn't come out with my story and I just basically kept it to myself, how big of a martyr would I be? And if I can't make a difference at this point, then I might as well just like lay down and give up. And that wasn't like giving up was never really ever in my realm of thinking. If somebody took me out, that'd be different. But I've been in 3 comas. I've had 4 organs taken out, and then this happened. So
Uh,
I'm undieable at this point in time. Like I think, so I just really want to make a difference before I, fall off the riverbanks, as they should say, or go to Valhalla at some point. And so I did take the Christianity out of my life, and I believe in a spiritual or universal platform. But I also do believe in the Viking way, and I wish some of those things that we could bring them back because I would love to Blood Eagle some of these people. Not that that's a great thing, but oh my God, would this be awesome? Or
uh,
just put him in the UFC ring and let me have at him for like just a few minutes, just a little, just the 5 minutes maybe.
oh yeah. Uh, Speaking of Vikings, there's something I do want to talk to you about after the interview because I don't want to really,
Sure.
but I do want to say that you you have a you have a pure heart. You always want to help people. Just from this conversation, I gained that from you. But the one thing I see when I look at you is perseverance.
Oh yeah. That's why it's
And
called Resilient Warrior.
oh yeah, and that's what I see. You're a warrior that is standing the test of time against all obstacles. And I'm a fan of you as a person. I'm a fan of your work because I've actually seen some of your movies.
Right on. Thank you.
But all in all, it's a respect for you because your story, albeit a very hard story, is a very inspirational story.
Thank you.
And that's what I truly believe. So,
I appreciate that.
all right. Uh, now let's talk a little bit about your movies.
Okay.
uh,
Which ones did you see? Because I've been in a little bit of a few of them.
I've actually seen Bridge of the Damned and Arena Wars.
Oh, so Bridge of the Dune was a zombie
Doomed,
film, and
yeah,
that was back in, oh gosh, 2000.
22.
Well, that's when it was
Released, yep.
released, but I think we did it in 2017.
Oh, dang.
And because it was way before COVID.
Oh, yeah. That's, I want to say, top to bottom, that cast was stacked.
Yeah, it was really good.
And the, I'm a zombie freak. Like, I love zombie movies, but yet the movie I directed was a supernatural slasher. Call me crazy, but,
Right.
but when you got onto that set, how was that? Because I mean, first off, being in movies is a feat alone because there's so much you have to traverse to be able to do what you want to do.
Right.
But for Bridge of the Doomed, what was that whole like atmosphere and what was it like being on that set?
So I learned a lot. I will acknowledge at this point in time that I didn't know who Michael Pare and Robert Lasardo were, and everybody was like, "How do you not know who these people are? Like, didn't you look them up before you did the film?" And I was like, "No, they told me that I have an opportunity, and all they listed it as a celebrity." And I was like, "Okay." So I get there and I meet these people, and I mean, it was such a great experience, especially working with Michael Pare as well. He's a gentle soul. At the time, he was really sick, and he still thrived, And so I was handing him tissues because his nose was running, like, "Hi, as a nurse, want another tissue?" And then I'm thinking, "Where's the Purell?" So it's like he's soldiered through it, and he's a really, really, really nice guy. He's really fun to work with, really gentle. And I learned a lot from him because there are many people that will say that they'll do something and then they don't. When just this one act of kindness was a lot to me, but when it was lunchtime, he waited until most people were done and then he got his meal. And it was like most of the time, the celebrities get theirs first and then other people, and then crew, all they get theirs, and then, people get what they're supposed to or whatever. And he never treated anybody any less or more. And that to me means a lot because if somebody can come to me and just be nice, like at this point in time, it takes it a long way and it makes the job a lot easier to where you're not stressed out and frustrated and pissed off, like you don't leave the set going, "Oh my God, what did I just pay for?" You know? Because at the time with anything to do with like Michael Mahal, a lot of these independent films, people will say that they got cast and they really actually they're really paying for their roles. They just don't, people are get really embarrassed about this, and I'm not sure why. But like Sean C. Phillips and all these people that are doing these independent films, you have to pay. It's pay to play. And with that being said, I don't find anything wrong with it. You know, if you want to do something and you get the chance to meet somebody that you actually really want to work with, what's the difference between going to these Comic Cons and paying hundreds of dollars, taking a little picture, and then you get this little photo that's a little sign and zippity doo dah, versus having something where you have a whole day or 4 days experience and you get to have fun. You meet all these people that you wouldn't normally get to meet. Then you get the cast and the crew and you learn all these different dynamics. Like I learned production, I learned lighting, I learned sound, I learned the backgrounds of it. I learned what, an extra was. I learned what paid extra was. I learned a little bit about SAG and, how that works. So all these things that I learned from doing an improv class. And guess what? I had to pay for those classes. Why? Because they were acting classes, and those were hundreds of dollars. So, hundreds of dollars and not get anything except for fun and, meet a couple people, couple hundred dollars meeting celebrities, or a couple $1,000, depending on whatever people spend, that's none of my business. Whatever. They get a DVD, and if they do it right, then they get distribution. Distribution can be difficult if you don't follow the rules. You have to follow the rules to the T if you want some of these. And guess what? It costs money. It costs money for distribution. It costs money to get the sound people right. It costs money for editing. So I think that there's so many people that don't understand this like dynamics of they just think, oh, well, I got cast in this film. Great. Well, guess what? So did I. I got cast in a couple other films, and the ones that I got paid for, some of them didn't even make it to distribution. So it felt like I wasted all that time. And yeah, I got paid, but it wasn't as fun as the stuff that I paid for. So it was like, well, I got paid for this and it was great. But then I paid for this and I got something tangible that I can say for the rest of my life if I want, like, hey, here's a DVD, pshing, And so same thing with Arena Wars. Eric Roberts, that was really stacked too. I mean, Michael Madison's pretty good, if you know who that is. I don't really like the name drop, but these are the people that were in it. So Robert Losardo was in that one as well. Eric Roberts is Julia Roberts' brother, if you guys don't know that. So all these people that came in, again, Tom Sizemore. I would have never been able to meet some of these people that I'd grown up watching, either on Fame, Free Willy, all these things that I'd watched when I was a younger child that I was like, oh my God, that's you? And then I'd have to do my research afterwards. Because I, again, didn't do my research for Arena Wars either. I just showed up, had fun, came back and realized, oh wow, that's really cool that I did that with so and so, you know, after the fact, but I just genuinely didn't know like who these people were. And I think it's better that way for me personally. I know other people like to find out who they're working with or, like to know who's in this film. I think for me, I just want to remain humble and I don't want to ever get to the point where I think that I'm jaded or meet somebody and have this skewed mindset where it's like putting them on a different level than I am because they've been doing this for some of them, these guys have been doing this over 30 years, and I respect that. Some of them have only been doing it for 5, 10, 20, whatever. But no matter what, I would rather remain humble and not really know their background, then meet them, and then do the research later on. I mean, why do I need to know who I'm like? Why do I need to know their resume? I'm going to show up and do me anyways. Whatever I'm supposed to be doing in that role, it's not like you have them right here anyway. You're not practicing with these people. So oftentimes when you get in films, what people don't realize too, there's a lot of good editing. And they think that you're in the same scene and you're not. Like some of the scenes that I was in, I was like, that was 3 days combined into one. That's really cool. But what's really, really cool about all of this is watching the whole thing come together. And I think that's my favorite part. Like people ask, like, what's the greatest part of it? Most people won't be like, oh, well, everything came together. I like to see what we all did to collaborate to see, how it turns out, what people thrived in, what the special effects ended up looking like. Brandon Slagle's really, really good as well. So when he did Arena Wars, getting to see that dynamic where there was a bunch of, basically prisoners that were fighting to the death. I was an audience member called as well on that one. And so I got to cheer on, basically, we're cheering them to die. That's basically what you're doing. That was the audience members, and it was really, really fun to watch that dynamics, but it was really, really cool to watch it in full effect because I was like, wow, that one really turned out pretty good too. And then I was in One Dead Dog. That one didn't even come out. That and it's still they're doing I don't even know what. And then I was in something called Sheer Bloody Murder. That one has so many actors that are very well known that it needs to come out, but it hasn't come out yet. So, from my understanding, it's in the works for distribution, and I was told that it's supposed to be at Lionsgate, but I don't know. The funding or the people that have told me that it's there, from my understanding, it can take 7 to 10 years before things come out. So that's the other thing people don't realize. It's not coming out right away. You're not going to like do the film and then shebang, it's all done. No, it takes time. And so getting it to distribution, you have to have all your T's, all your I's dotted, all the sound in checked, everything like colors and stuff like that matched up. Otherwise, they don't want it. And rightfully so. You don't want a junky movie. Like, who wants to watch a junky movie? I don't.
Very true. Uh, so would you say that everything you've gone through up to your acting career has kind of played a role in the way you approach actually just not even your acting career, just everything you've gone through, every time you approach a new situation, do you think all that kind of plays into your approach and how does it play into your approach?
So I think between my education, becoming a Watsu practitioner, because I couldn't walk at the time, I actually learned through water a lot on how to try to figure things out and get that balance as well. Then take my childhood and rev that up a little bit, and then being tortured for 4 straight months. I had to go through, honestly, I just stopped therapy November of last year. And I had started in 1999, but stopped for a while. And then after 2014, I just needed it. I mean, I don't know anybody who could go through what I did and not need it. So from 2017 till about 3, 4 months ago, I did almost every single therapy that I could think of. Equine therapy, I did gardening, I got invited previously back in 2000-ish to a New York Buddhist temple. So I got to stay there for a week. I was invited by the Chinese monk. Very rare, especially at that time, especially for an American woman. It was like, my friend was like, hey, he wants to talk to you. And I'm like, what do you want to talk to me about? She's like, just go over there and talk to him. And I was like, all right, here we go. I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? And my friend's like, what are you doing? This is a monk. I'm like, what am I? Hey, dude. Hi, monk. What's up? Jabbing me. She goes, Mindy, this is not the time to be funny. And so he smiled and he was courteous. He actually taught me how to meditate for 4 hours walking because he knew that I couldn't sit. At that time, I was super hyper and I couldn't sit. So to save my life. So he taught me how to do walking meditations. So we did 4 hour walking meditations, and I learned how to do that as well. So I think my approach to life in any situation, given all of that combined, is kind of like situational awareness. If at any time I feel something's off, I will most likely remove myself. If there's somebody that has even been like a friend of mine, because I had this experience last year, that has known me for 20 years and all of a sudden just shifted more towards like judging. We all judge, right, at some point, but it was just so harsh and so nasty and it got so gnarly and things didn't seem right. And I don't care what you do on your own time. If you do drugs, drink, whatever, that's fine. Whatever. Just don't make it to where if I'm with you that there can be consequences that I have to deal with. I have a license to uphold. I don't want to be messing with anybody that's doing anything illegal, anything messy, basically is what I call it. Any kind of messes. I don't like messiness when it comes to that kind of stuff because I worked really hard to get to where I'm at and I don't want my name being judged through the ground with some, so and so, like I just don't. I like to keep my side of the streets very clean, and that's just the way I work. So if at any point in time there's something off, like Gavin DeBecker said, if you ever have that, what was that? It's called The Gift of Fear. I recommend anybody read that book because what he says is women often knew who their assailant, like just before they got assaulted, they always had this like intuition spot or, something that was just off. And he said, we often don't listen to that, and we're the only creatures that do, because the animals in the animal kingdom are fight or flight. No questions asked. If they feel scared, they're running. They're not like, well, let me figure this out. No. And so at this point in time, I take that knowledge and I bail. If something's not right, or something doesn't feel right, or if too many things are off, or if it gets really, really confusing to me, I take that as the notation to just either stop, pause, or be done. And that often goes with relationships as well. Because I feel like if there's something that off, I want to talk about it first and try to resolve it. That's always been my like go-to first. If I can't resolve it, then I'm done. I'm not gonna keep asking somebody like to be in my life. I'm not gonna beg you to be in my life and ask you like, can we work this out? If we can't work this out, please go your separate ways and I'll go my separate ways too. I hope you live the most abundant life. Do what you ever you want to do. However, for me, I think it just depends, like every situation is dependent, and I've been in places where I was at the airport dropping somebody off, somebody had a heart attack. The pilot had a heart attack and I was doing CPR in the middle of the airport, it was wild. And then this other doctor came in, she's doing mouth to mouth. I'm doing compressions. Department comes in. I put the IV in and they're like, "Oh my God, who did this?" And they were like, "She did." And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I'm a combat field medic. Like, what's the problem?" They're like, "There's no problem. We just haven't seen anybody execute it like this before." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's why. So take care of it before you get to go. Peace out, dude. Hope you make it." So I use humor a lot, a lot, a lot. And sometimes I'm a smartass, and I get that too. But I'm also working on doing public speaking at this point in time and getting more of my voice out because I was right before COVID. I was going to high schools and talking to the kids at the high schools. And I was supposed to have a book release the day that everything shut down, literally. Like there was going to be, I was at Barnes and Noble, I was getting ready to get everything set up. The next day I was ready to go, and then shebang, nothing happened. And I was like, dang, I lost my contract with the Ben jail because they didn't have any money to fund. What I did was create something called Feed My City. And that means one seed, one plant, one garden at a time. So I would teach people to just care for their plants. And if they had extra, give it to their neighbor or give it to the food banks or go to the grocery stores, find out if they have extra food and give it to the food banks because there's so much waste right now. And so when that didn't happen, I kind of just had to figure out like what's next. And for me, COVID seemed like it lasts forever. And now that we're finding out all this mess about it, it's hard as a medical provider to come to terms with a lot of this stuff because though I knew certain things in the background, it was just such a mess coming out of this stuff. And I was told I had to get 3 injections before going to get stem cells to Colombia. Otherwise, I couldn't get on the plane. And I was mad because I didn't want any of the thing. I didn't want none of the jab. I didn't want any COVID, nothing. I didn't want none of that. I don't even do, at this point in time, I don't do flu shots. To each their own. And I will never tell anybody to not get the shot or not wear your mask if that's what you want to do, or wear double masks if you feel like outside. You're in complete air and you don't need it. However, if that's what you feel like doing, same thing. If you want to believe in God, believe in God. If you want to believe a toad is a God, believe the toad is a God. And at this point in time, I kind of just I went back to my childhood thinking ish to where I was like, I always at that point accepted whatever people did, and it wasn't more or less for me to judge because that's what I was taught. And I carried that with me. And I carry integrity at the top of my game. So if I say I'm going to do something, people know that have been following me and that have been my friends for over 25 years. That is the one thing that has stayed consistent. I will do what I say I'm going to do. I will, if I think I'm going to forget, I'll put it in my phone. If I said I was going to call you at this time or whatever, I'll put it in my phone to make sure I follow through with what I said I was going to do. Now, if you don't pick up, I'm leaving a message and you got to figure it out. But, yeah, I'm going to, for the most part, come hell or high water. There was only one time that I struggled, and it was because there was a blizzard, and I still drove in Denver from my house to my friend's house, and they were like, "You're nuts." And I said I was going to be here. They're like, "Oh my God, you're not going anywhere until tomorrow." And I was like, then when I looked back, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't see anything," you know. But that's kind of like where I feel it's necessary, and I take things to the nth degree, but I also push my own self, and I'm never going to be a hypocrite. So if I say that, like, oh, I've tried this, or I've done it this way, and I ask you to do it this way, I'm going to tell you I'm living by example, and I did it this way because I don't want to be a hypocrite either. But I've tried so many different modalities and so many healing modalities as well. I put that in my book because people are searching for something sometimes. And a lot of people right now are depressed and have anxiety out the wazazoo. They don't know how to deal with it. And so if I can take, I don't know, 60% of that and just carry that load, I want to do that too. Just give me your anxiety, let's go. So right now, I'm actually working with women that have been sex trafficked and they've been in a cult and they were sold. And I would not have been able to help these women had I not gone through what I'd gone through. And they actually sought me out. They saw my book and they were like, I want her. And that was an honor for me to learn that because I had no idea. You never know who you're going to impact, right? But the way that I speak and the way that I am, I never know who I'm going to influence. And that to me makes a big difference. So I realized that I was making a difference when the people in Australia started to feed my city, then the UK, then England. People in Scotland started to catch on. In Ireland, they wanted to do some other things. I had a friend of mine that's in Russia write his own book when he read mine. I had another guy in Ireland write his book because he saw mine in the UK and other different countries that have definitely, they're like, "Oh my God, if you can do this, then why couldn't I?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Well, why can't you? Go do it." You know? Or people will be like, "I want to write a book." Good, go write your book. "I want to be in a movie." Good, go be in a movie. Do whatever you want to do to make yourself happy because when it all comes down to it, on the day that I'm on my deathbed, I don't have any regrets. At this point in time, I could die today, tonight, and be just fine. Because I feel like I've done everything that I really wanted to do, and everything from this point forward will be not like icing on the cake because it's not, but it'll be what's meant to be. I feel like I've come a long way, and finally at this point in time, I really don't want to argue with anybody. I used to want to fight and argue all the time. And it took me a long time to figure out that like my nervous system really doesn't like that, and blood pressure issues and stuff like that. Like it's just not that necessary to get that angry sometimes. Sometimes it is necessary. And sometimes I'm very scary. I've noticed when I get angry. I tend to write. And some people don't like that because I will be writing about you and I will let you know it. People are like, "Oh my God, who made you mad?" Because I'll be, and I'm on social media, so I post it, and people are like, "Oh my God." Sometimes I name names, most of the time I don't, and they're like, "Oh, mercy, who made you mad?" But or who made you so excited that you're writing all this stuff about? It's just a range of an emotion that I feel like people could do a lot of therapy through writing or art therapy or equine therapy or gardening or swimming with dolphins or getting back to nature is the most important. And also diet is the most important because what we're finding, and I'm working with Pat Militek, who's the number one UFC guy, if you know him. He's a commentator, he's a badass, and he and I talk plethora, and he sent me these capsules. And at first, I was like, my publisher was like, "I want you to try this," and I was like, "Oh, one more thing to try." So I talked to Pat, and he's like, "I want to introduce you to somebody," and I was like, "Oh, all right, I'll talk to him." And the knowledge that he had and what he presented was great. And so it's called Soil Saviors and Cell Saviors. And what it is basically is when the cows had, like, if you separated the stuff, like, here's the stuff they put on this soil, and here's the stuff that you put on your soil. The cows diverted from your soil to only wanting to eat this. And then things got better. My digestion system is a lot better because of Pat Militech. These capsules helped my gut. I've had 4 organs taken out. I was telling him I was like in a wreck. My stomach, I felt either bloated or I constipated, and I felt like I was going to throw up, and I just was having a hard time. And I was getting mad basically because I was like, what do I need to do? Like, I'm eating salad and I'm doing these fruits and vegetables. Like, what's going on? So I added this component to it, and it's genuinely helped. So I think given everything that I've done, I want to get my books out into as many places as I can, but I'd really like to get more books in family advocacy groups, and I'd really like to get the children's book into more police departments so that we can calm their nervous system down when they get picked up.
Uh, we are coming near the end of the show. I do want to say that your story, again, very inspirational. You are an inspiration. You're always going to be an inspiration for
Thank
many of
you.
the people. I truly believe this. And your story, I know for, again, first time talking face to face, it has touched my heart. And, I want to be a champion for you. So if I can promote your book, even on my podcast or my social media, trust me, I'm going to,
Great, thank you.
you
And
know,
I'll show them real quick what it looks like. This is Resilient Warrior. It's available on Amazon.com as an ebook as well as this book, and then Walmart or Barnes& and Noble online. And then A Dragon's Voice looks like this.
uh,
And it's also available as an ebook or soft copy on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, or BarnesandNoble.com.
so I did tell my wife. I always mention my wife in every episode. I'm just proud of her. But I did tell my wife that you wrote 2 books, and she ordered both of them. One, The Resilient
Yay.
Warrior, she's gonna read, and then we actually got the Dragon's Voice for our young nephew, well, my
Thank
great
you.
nephew. I'm old as shit, but still,
I really appreciate you supporting me.
it's again, if we don't look out for each other and help support each other, who's gonna do it, right?
And then if you could do me a big favor and write a review on there, because that's what the police look for is reviews on these books to find out like what people are actually wanting or what they're looking at. So if you could spend some time or her spend some time and write a little review on Amazon, that would be greatly appreciated. For anybody who has gotten my book, please go back and do one little favor for me and just put it in there if you can for A Dragon's Voice and Resilient Warrior.
I'll make sure that we both write a review for it. So for both of them. So
Thank you.
I do want to give you a moment to plug your socials where people can see your movies, or they can reach out to you if you want them to. That's entirely up to you. And just kind of plug anything you want to plug, and the floor is yours.
So Amazon.com again for my books, Walmart or Barnes& and Noble. That's for the books. And then my films are actually on Amazon Prime from my recollection. And there's some that are like on Xbox or whatever. That's what Michael Mahal set up. So some of these like interlink through. I would just look up Bridge of the Doom if you want to look that up, and I would look up Arena Wars if you want to look that up. Those are the 2 main films, and then the other films that I've done, like I'm going to be a voiceover on I think 3 or 4 more films. I wrote them down. Black Eyed Children #2 is in Europe. Another one I just signed for today is in Canada, but I don't know the name of it because I literally am I didn't even have the paperwork yet that I signed. He just reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've been following you for 6 years." I'm like, "You stalker." He's like, "No, no, no. I reached out before COVID and we were supposed to work together. Do you remember me?" I'm like, "No, I don't remember you." But I'll work with you. What do you want to do? And so he's like, this would be really cool if you could be a voiceover because I can't come out there because of the situation that America and, that we're in trans countries. And I was like, all right, sure, I'll do that. Why not? And then a couple in America. So those are coming out, or those are I'm doing as well. And then I think that's about it. And if anybody wants to reach me, I am on Facebook as Mindy Dougherty, Mindy. Dough, you just spell pizza dough and then add ERTY, Dougherty. On Instagram, I'm Water Gypsy without the vowels, so it's WTRGPSY. You'll notice the same face on every platform that I have. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, and this new thing called Threads, which is really a pain in the ass. I don't like it because there's too many fake profiles and AIs, and it's just too much for me. But I'm mainly on Facebook and Instagram, like are my main platforms, and then I'm on YouTube, but I don't even remember what the YouTube is. I think it's like Mindy D or something like that, but I don't really go to it. So I wouldn't really suggest that one. But just being honest,
Oh yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, and then I'm going to be doing podcasts, co-hosting with the Undercover Dumpster soon, and then I'll be on doing more things in the future.
All right. Well, Mindy, I want to thank you for coming on. You've been an awesome guest. You've been actually one of my favorite guests. So
Thank you.
it's your story is very inspirational, and I know that once this goes it will be on YouTube first, and then I'll
Oh,
send it to you.
great.
But
I'll upload it to my YouTube page too, in case anybody is like, "Oh, I'm check that chick out."
but I truly believe you are a resilient warrior.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna, like I said, I'll be a champion for you in any way, shape, or form I can because I want to make sure that your story gets out there and people can be inspired like I am. So,
Thank you. That's really genuinely mostly what I want is to get my story heard and make a change. If I
oh
can make a change and help people out at the same time, then I've won.
yeah. Well, trust me, I'm pretty sure you've already done that, so you're already a winner. But if not, we're gonna make you a winner.
Mhm.
But now you're a winner. Trust me. Uh, this has been a blessing, and I've never said that word on any of my podcasts. So this has been a
Appreciate it.
blessing. So
I'm glad that I can make a difference with you.
oh yeah, I truly, truly appreciate you and thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for your time.
Everybody, next time, I'll see y'all later. I'm not even gonna say all I know bye.